my Bankuna High School years, 1981 to 1982. What memories do you have of 1982? Globally, around 700,000 demonstrators gathered in New York City's Central Park, protesting the proliferation of nuclear weapons. Bulelwani Ntuka was jailed for 3 years in 1982 for refusing to give evidence in the political trial of Patrick Maqubele and others. The South African Defence Force stages a pre-dawn raid on houses inhabited by African National Congress in Maseru. A recorded 10 bombs exploded in South Africa, planted by the Liberation Movement. During that year, a white South African doctor and trade union organizer died while in detention after being arrested by the South African Security Police. So, 1982, I was a high school matric student. Now, there was no high school under the village falling within Chief Mwamito or Babanana village where I lived. So I had no choice but to leave Mbekwane Secondary School, where I was a student from 1978 to 1980, to go to Bankuna. Well, the villages for which had been my home for 10 years in pursuits of high or secondary education at Bankuna High School at Ngamito Township were memorable. It's about 15 kilometers from Tzaneen. This township was created as part of the apartheid system, separating African people by language, and this township was for Tsonga speakers. Because of its location near the valley and river, winters at Bankuna High were cold and unbearable, and the food was not very tasty most of the time. The best way to get better meals was to be part of the student leadership or to work with a school catering committee which assisted the boarding master in feeding the students and keeping order, of course. Now, the attraction in going from the village to the new location was that the secondary school will only be 25 kilometers away from home. At this school, it was the first time that I had my own bed. Back at the village, there were no beds. We slept on reed mattresses, which were cold and hard and uncomfortable most of the time. Beds at the high school were a little bit better, but we had to sleep on top of each other, the decker kinds of beds. The dormitory accommodated about 150 students who could afford to pay the minimum fee of about 20 rand per term. Fortunately, my sister Gladys, who stayed only 2 kilometers from the school, helped to pay for my accommodation, of which I'm grateful. At that time, Gladys was both a teacher at a different school during the day, but spent evenings and weekends running her clothing and catering business. As she was supporting me in turn, I'll help her in her own business during school holidays for pocket money, and to earn my keep, I worked also for a local farmer during school vacation time. I will also buy apples and other fruits from Tzaneen town and sell them to other students, enabling me to buy books and also clothing. There were buses transporting workers to and from Tzaneen, but we could only go there during weekends, only with the permission of the headmaster. There were more refusals than approvals, of course, so we would sneak out, don't tell him, after school and go to buy the goods. There were times I was caught and punished heavily. Corporal punishment at the time was approved, even by the education authorities at the time. This was a continuation of my entrepreneurial activities, which I had learned many years earlier in primary and secondary schools. However, this interfered, of course, with my learning and commitment to education. Sister Gladys was not impressed, and she did not entirely support my entrepreneurial activities as they severely impacted my academic studies. For her, attaining an education was the key to a future in society. Apart from this, theft of my produce was high, and older students tended to take advantage of me. They would take apples and promise to pay, something which most of them never actually did. Although at some point it appeared as if it was like a ship without a compass at Bankuna High School, the principal, the teachers, both male and female, and the students I met there helped me to get my compass back. In time, the fog cleared and the hope returned. The time did come when the future started to appear much clearer and brighter. Some of the students at high school joined me on my journey as I pursued my tertiary education. Others got married and settled down, and I have never heard from them since then. The books my elderly siblings encouraged me to read, and the teachers who taught me rekindled in me the desire to become at least someone who could make a difference in South Africa. Armed with this awareness, knowledge, and reawakening, I sensed that I could possibly be unstoppable. Just like the water of a river running down a mountain, I believe that I could be invisible, like the marathon runner who knows that the medal is theirs at the finishing line. If anything, I learned to get the naysayers out of my life. I wanted to win like the comrade marathon runner who is within a kilometer of victory. The decision to focus on the end state and victory has helped me to achieve far more in life that I could have without persistence. Once persistence is part of your DNA and you know what you want in life, you are taking charge of your destiny. Although I did not realize it at that time, with hindsight, I see that Bankuna High School provided a compass and fellow sailors who have enabled me to navigate and sail in the sea of life. I'm glad that those 24 months at high school has set a solid foundation for my tertiary education in the following 3 to 8 years. Now, the influential school principal, I should say something about him. There are some educators who, even if you encounter them even for only a short time, have a legendary impact. My high school principal, known as Z. James Tebula, was one of them in 1981 and 1982. He was a tall, thin, but muscular person with the body of an athlete. Trained by Swiss missionaries, he adopted their strict approach in the way he managed the school and led his teachers as well. DZJ was a no-nonsense school manager who was also legendary for disciplining both teachers and learners. That's right, you got me right. One day, the school principal caught me making noise in class. Oh my God, he was able to detect my misdemeanor through a hidden window. Not only did he give me a clap in the presence of the rest of my schoolmates, but he also made it clear that my relationship with my brother doctor, who was a teacher there, was not going to hinder him from disciplining me when he caught me in a misdemeanor. He said to me, "You have to choose the path you want to pursue. The act requires you to decide and pursue it with absolute determination until you get what you want. You are the crafter of your destiny." And I'm one of many who, if you listen carefully, he said, and take what makes sense to you, he said, can help direct you towards your path. Never take shortcuts, he said. Shortcuts are unwise. And he said, read daily. Take time to read and learn from books. Being authentic and real is the key, he said. You are the only one who can craft your destiny. Well, that began to make sense. Those words changed my world forever. They have remained with me for the past 30 years. After such public humiliation, the school principal advised me to think about my future seriously. I could not sleep peacefully that night. That evening, I went back to my school dormitory, sat on my bed, and started to think hard about what I wanted to do with my life. Up until that moment, I had waited for others to guide me and support me. I also understood that days were passing by quickly and I had very little clarity about what I wanted to do with my life. My experience with the school principal was a public embarrassment to me, and this also had an effect on my brother, Doctor. Although I only encountered my school principal for 2 years, he certainly had a profound impact. And decades later, I'm still grateful for his contribution. I decided at that time to seek the assistance of my brother seriously and also others as well to help me in the process. Number two, the influence of my brother. I've already indicated, just to clarify a few points. My brother was a brilliant teacher and strategist. He used a coaching approach to have a conversation with me. Rather than telling me what to do, my brother asked me what I wanted to become. And when I grew up, he said to me that each day brings a sunshine and ends in a sunset. The same way each person opens his eyes to see the light and then closes them in the dark. Brother indicated to me that books were powerful ways to start me on a stable path aligned with the seed planted in me at birth. As he was a teacher, I believed him, and for that matter, he was my brother. Since Doctor was a teacher at the school, every person suspected that he would leak the question papers to me before the day of the examinations. But my brother had the highest integrity when it came to matters of the school. But having a teacher who was a relative was a disadvantage at some point and in some other ways. Brother kept on informing that I was on my own. But at home, he did spend time with me, encouraging me to study hard. I had no choice but to do the very best I could to ensure that my marks at least were respectable. Up until that time, I only had respectable marks and nothing to write home about. The schoolmaster will send spies to pry out the extent to which my brother might have been shared some secrets, but there were none. With hindsight, I believe that having a relative as a teacher put me at a disadvantage. Number three, my classmates. At the high school, I was impressed by brilliant classmates like Enos Banja, now a top lawyer living in New York. Pacing Lala, now a renowned educator and chair of the South African Communist Party in Limpopo. Eric Mkansi, a school principal in Limpopo, Mpumalanga rather, and Eric Mkawani, who spent a decade as a Deputy Chief Tax Ombudsman in Pretoria, acting judge and one of the finest jurists of our time. They were the academic superstars at high school, and rightly so, and received all the academic accolades. I was a timid young boy and was too shy to even befriend them initially, believing that they would ridicule me and put me in my place. I was, however, surprised by their humility combined with their brilliance. In various ways, they helped shape the kind of a student I was and the professional I later became. I used to make sure that I'll spend time with clever students and I'll eavesdrop on the conversations they had to learn what was new, what was relevant, to enrich myself, I will also watch how other student studies, and the book chapters they were focusing on, or before exams, and how they were planning, and the amount of time they were spending studying. I soon realized that I too could do something positive about my life. So I learned from others. I also noticed that some of my schoolmates were keen to help, provided me with the much needed support. Yes, I was desperate most of the time to succeed. Desperate, I really mean it. I really wanted to make it. I also understood that the time spent revising for examinations, using old question papers was also very important to understand what I was learning at the time. From these intelligent superstars I call, those I have mentioned, I realized that not anyone can make it provided they activate their own brilliance. They were the pathfinders, and I followed in their footsteps. Number 4, teachers awoke the giant within me. In my final year as a student, which was 1982, the teachers at Bankuna High were very supportive, very indeed. They were keen to see us pass grade 12 so that we could go on to tertiary educational institutions. I probably worked harder than any student at the time, besides Brother Doctor, the other remarkable private teacher who inspired me so much at the time was Inigo Manuleke, now professor at the University of Pretoria. He taught English. Oh my God. His language was impeccable and inspired the very best in me. As I recall, no African authors who wrote in English were prescribed at the time. One subject which I struggled was Afrikaans, which was compulsory in order to pass grade 12. It was called matric at that time. Well, in general, the teachers sought to inspire and motivate us as learners. They really wanted the very best for us, and we also had to do our part in spite of the Bantu education which we were getting at that time. The commitment of the teachers at Bankuna High made me fall in love with education. That's right. And for a fleeting moment, I thought perhaps teaching would be my life career. A few of the teachers, a handful only, I may add, broke with tradition by not only focusing on rote learning, but also making education come alive by involving us and encouraging the class to have vibrant debates. In fact, the teachers were not soft on us. They challenged us to read more than what was prescribed. I soon realized that the best teachers were not only those who know the most about the subject matter, but were the ones who were capable of reducing education to its simplest components for the keen learner to understand properly. There were a few teachers at Bankuna who did not just give the facts, but referred us to the books and asked us to reflect on them on our own. In a way, the teachers at Bankuna prepared us for the future as thinkers, able to reflect on the importance and relevance of education. Due to the quality of education at the time, a few high school teachers expected us to do well. Many of the teachers focused on the high failure rate at matric level. There were a few teachers, like, as I said, at Sam, the professor at UJN, and Doctor, who inspired me, challenged and supported us to do well. The master motivator was the school principal, oh my God, who combined inspiration and strict discipline. Brother Doctor was another private teacher who encouraged us to know that there will come a time when we will be in leadership positions and will have to lead as literate, informed, and change agents. They opened the gates of our minds to the possibility that the future could be different from that or what prevailed at the time in the 1980s. That was one of the most powerful ways in which they taught us. They taught more than the formal syllabus. They prepared us for life and the future. Lesson number 5. At Bankuna High, with little resources, teachers were planting in the field of our life, which later bore extraordinary fruits. Educators understood that a flower never fulfills its destiny until it blooms. We students still needed to grow and to understand what role we will play in the future. We believed that at some point in the future, the star within will accomplish its fate, but the sun needed to shine first. I learned a lesson from the village river, which was adjacent to our high school. Instead of many challenges and obstacles, the river had a way of forcing itself to change its course. But it never changed its destination. Reflecting on those tumultuous but also wonderful years in high school, indeed, other people, elders and teachers and priests are important guests in our story and also in our life. At the same time, we are guests in their lives. The difficulties which I encountered in life in general and at school in particular helped to shape who I was then and who I ultimately became decades later. We may meet those challenges again in the future, and other people who we will not remember, but our encounters with other people are typically for our mutual benefit, whether palatable or not. We are because of others we meet in life and how we learn from both life and others' experiences. Another lesson that I learned in high school was that each person we meet is a doorway to the future. Some may open doors and others will shut them. Some people challenge us to live up to our highest potential and others may undermine us. As a result, our generation of students bounce back to demonstrate to critics and to the world that we are more than able to achieve events through. There were enormous challenges. We became stronger and courageous, and we were ready to live our lives and make our signature or significant contributions to society. For most people, life is like a flash. Many things come and go, and we never pay attention. The impact of our encounters may shape our destinies, and they carve out careers we never thought we might pursue. At high school, some of the students were ordinary, just like me, and I hardly remember their faces, but they added tremendous value and shaped my mind, for which I'm very, very grateful for. Now, associate with other bright students, for they will challenge you to learn more and grow intellectually. Some of the students I met at Bankuna High School have gone on to achieve extraordinary feats in their careers. Some became politicians, lawyers, and financial gurus. Others are now university professors, educators, and experts in their respective fields in society. Some are artists, and others are writers. Some students at that period became entrepreneurs, and others are priests and also nuns. We attended high school together. Looking back now, I realize that they all inspired me to be the very best version of myself, and I'm truly grateful to have met those students and the teachers some 3 decades ago. Do what smart students do, for they know something which you may not know. I was a good student in terms of copying the positive behavior of some of the students who were bright and brilliant at the time. I did everything the learners and educators did, like reading the same books, taking lunch breaks with them, and I made sure to listen to their conversations during the student break period. As the majority of the students at Bankuna at the time were housed at the student residence, I volunteered to be one of the cooks, chefs, so they call it. And I made sure that the leaders got the best meals. So they always were sympathetic and kind to me. Another important point to emphasize: read the books which other smart students and teachers read, especially those books which are not in the syllabus. As a learner at high school, my written and spoken English were very, 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 very bad. To compensate for my deficiency, I will listen to the English expressions of other peoples which the teachers admired and used them. Because of the inspiration of those learners and my desire to learn, I have now written several books. And I'm now a sort out speaker. Not bad for a learner who could hardly write a sentence or speak English in high school. The other point: imitate the best students, the best study and reading habits of the best students, and it will improve your chances of success in your pursuit of education. Copying good behavior is good. It is an important way to learn and grow. As I was not one of the brightest students, as I said, I will ensure that I associated myself with the bright ones, and this habit alone ensured that at least I passed metric. Another point: never undermine those who are not as smart as you, for there will be a time in life that they will not only catch up with you, but could become your leaders in society. That's for sure. Some of the learners I was at high school now are occupying very important positions in society. From time to time, when we make to reminiscence about our school days, they are, movers and shakers, and they have become leaders in society. Never cry foul when the education system gives you a bad scorecard, as there will be another chance to get a better one. If that does not happen, imitate and copy the good behavior of those who are excelling and ask how they are doing, for they know something that you do not know. Above all, listen with care to the important lessons from great teachers, for they will set you on a firm foundation for the future. Having a love affair with books and learning more than is required to pass not only your exams, but an exam of life. That could open more doors than any other act. Books expand your mind and bring you fresh new ideas which will inspire you to grow as a citizen of the world. The school principal, the teachers, and many of my classmates at the time helped to shape who I later became. Each person we meet, each moment we experience, and each day we live all shape who we become and lead directly or indirectly to areas leading to the fulfillment of our destiny. What we ultimately choose to do, think, and feel at that moment will be by necessity ultimately shape our future destiny. My experiences at high school made me realize that the things which we desire most do not come quickly. I understood that what I needed to succeed was outside of my contained, protected comfort zone. The only way forward was to up my game. I wanted to achieve better results. Signing off, Dr. Masasekani Misha Kosa, the Thinking Futurist. Thank you.